I'm writing this here because I don't know where else to put it. My therapist says journaling helps, but a part of me wants someone out there to read this. Maybe judge me. Maybe tell me I'm not crazy for still missing her, even after what she did. My name's Emily. I'm 29, live in Maryland, just got married 2 months ago. For most of my life, I thought I was lucky in the friends department. I had Sarah, my maid of honor, my college roommate, my partner in every crime except the legal ones. We'd been friends for over a decade. And I had Michael, now my husband. He proposed after 5 years of dating, and I said yes through tears. I really thought I was stepping into the best season of my life. The wedding was at this little vineyard just outside Annapolis, simple, tasteful, everything I wanted. Sarah helped me pick the flowers, the playlist, even the stupid signature cocktails. Hers was the blushing bride, mine was just straight bourbon, go figure. She was the one who calmed me down when the florist mixed up the centerpieces, when the zipper on my dress got stuck. She handled everything with grace. I don't think I thanked her enough. The ceremony went off without a hitch. I saw Michael at the altar and the world just went still. You know that feeling? When everything you've been waiting for finally meets you halfway? That's what it felt like. We said our vows, danced under string lights, and drank too much champagne with people we hadn't seen since college. It was perfect. Until the morning after. My mom called me around 8 a.m., voice sharp with panic. Emily, did you move the gift envelopes? I thought she meant the wrapped presents, the kitchen stuff. But no, she meant the envelopes. The ones people stuffed with cash, checks, gift cards. We'd had a secure box set up near the guest book. It was locked. Or so we thought. We tore through everything. The storage room, the bridal suite, even the damn bushes around the venue. Nothing. The box was there, but the lock was popped. Most of the envelopes were gone. At first, we figured it had to be an outside job. A staff member, maybe a vendor. But when we pulled the security footage, things got messy. The footage wasn't high quality, but you could see someone, small frame, short hair, moving toward the gift table after most people had gone inside for the last dance. You couldn't see a face, but you could see enough. And what made my stomach turn was the dress. Pale green, off-shoulder, floor-length. Sarah's dress. I tried to tell myself it was a coincidence. That someone else wore the same dress. That it wasn't her. But when I asked her about it, just gently, no accusations, she froze. Blinked a few times. Then said, I think I need to tell you something. The next thing she said shattered everything I knew about her. I took it. The money. I'm so sorry. I had no choice. No mention of being sick. No explanation beyond that she was drowning in debt. She didn't even look sorry. Just, tired. I asked her to leave. Michael had to step between us when I lunged. I didn't even recognize my own voice. I'd loved her like a sister. We haven't spoken since. But last night, I got a call. From her mother. Sarah's in the hospital. Something serious. She didn't give details, just said, if you want to see her again, you should come now. And here I am, in my car, staring at the hospital entrance, hands shaking. Because what if I was wrong? What if there's more to the story than she told me? And do I even want to know? I walked into the hospital room expecting answers. What I got was silence. I sat in the hospital parking lot for almost an hour before I convinced myself to walk inside. It was early, maybe 6:30 a.m. That hour when the sky's still gray and quiet hangs heavy. I hadn't told Michael I was going. He would have come with me, he always would, but something about this felt like I had to face it alone. The front desk gave me Sarah's room number without hesitation. No security, no screening. Just a quiet nurse pointing me toward the elevator. That pissed me off more than I expected. After what she did to me, after she stole from me on my wedding day, she gets sympathy? A quiet bed with warm blankets? I hated myself for being bitter. But the truth is, I was. Room 412. 4th floor, end of the hallway. I stood outside for a while, staring at the nameplate. S. Mitchell. She didn't even change her name after her divorce. I always admired that, her unwillingness to let any man rewrite her story. Even now, I couldn't stop loving parts of her. That was the worst of it. When I walked in, I expected tubes, machines, maybe beeping sounds or something dramatic. Instead, there was just Sarah, lying in bed, asleep. No oxygen mask. No monitors. Just a thin foreline and a worn-out expression that made her look a decade older. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, brittle, uneven like she'd cut it herself. Her skin looked gray under the hospital light. Her hands trembled slightly, even in sleep. I stood there, gripping the edge of the visitor's chair like it was going to stop me from falling apart. Then she opened her eyes. No surprise. No apology. Just a small, tired smile. "Hey, Em." Her voice was paper-thin, like it might blow away if she spoke too loud. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the fore out of her arm and demand she explain. But what came out was something different. "You're sick." She nodded once, like we were discussing the weather. "For how long?" I asked. Another pause. "A while." I waited for more. An apology. An explanation. Anything. But she just looked at me, like that was all she had left to give. "I got your mom's call," I finally said. "She said if I wanted to see you, I should come now." Sarah looked away. Her eyes moved to the window, where the sun was just beginning to rise. "You didn't tell me," I whispered. She didn't answer. "You let me think you were just greedy. That you took the money because you wanted to bail yourself out of a stupid credit card mess." Her voice came, barely audible. "I did." "No, you didn't. You took it because of this." I waved toward the machines, the damn hospital gown. "You were sick. You are sick." Her eyes met mine again. And this time, I saw something in them that chilled me. Guilt. But not the kind you confess and let go of. The kind that rots you from the inside out. "I didn't want you to forgive me," she said. "I just wanted to make it through one more year." I felt something split open in my chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because then I wouldn't have been the villain," she said. "And you needed me to be." That was the last thing she said before a nurse came in and told me visiting hours were over. I walked out numb. And that would have been the end of it, maybe, except I got a package today. Wrapped in plain brown paper, no return address. Inside? A notebook. Her handwriting on the first page. "If you're reading this, I guess it's too late." It took me an entire day to open the damn thing. I kept the notebook on the kitchen table while I cleaned, reorganized the spice rack, wiped the counters twice. Michael noticed, of course. He asked what it was. I told him it was from Sarah, and his mouth drew into that tight line he does when he's holding back an opinion he knows I'm not ready to hear. He didn't push. He never does. That night, after he went to bed, I made tea and sat down with a notebook. It was old. A cheap composition book, the kind you'd buy in bulk at a drugstore. The pages were soft and yellowing at the edges, some dog-eared. The cover was peeling. But her handwriting, neat, consistent, all caps like she always did when she was trying to be methodical, was unmistakably hers. Page 1. "If you're reading this, I guess it's too late. I didn't want you to see me like this, sick, small, broken. I wanted you to remember me as I was. But I owe you the truth. All of it." I read the first few pages slowly. Each entry dated. Some were just bullet points. Others, full-on letters. She didn't write every day, but she wrote often enough that I could feel the weight of time, the slow erosion of hope. Entry, January 14th. "Doctor called today. Results are back. It's not benign." I smiled the whole time I was on the phone, like that would somehow keep the news from being real. Entry, February 2nd. "I haven't told anyone. Not even you. Especially not you. You'd try to save me. And I can't let you carry this." Entry, March 11th. "Bills are stacking up. I canceled my insurance last year to pay rent. Stupid, right? 20 grand for a trial I'm not even guaranteed to qualify for. I keep wondering if it's worth it." I was crying by then. Quiet, wet-faced crying, the kind you do when you're so tired it doesn't even feel like crying anymore. Just leaking pain. But then came page 22. And page 22 changed everything. It wasn't a diary entry. It was a printout, taped into the notebook. An email. From my fiancé. From Michael. I didn't recognize the email address, probably a burner or an old one I never saw. But his writing style? His phrasing? The way he signed it, M? It was him. Subject, you need to stop. Date, 5 months before the wedding. Sarah. You need to back off. I told you this was a mistake from the beginning. You said it was a one-time thing. You said it wouldn't mess anything up. Now she's asking questions. You made your choice. Stay away from us. M. I read it 4 times. The handwriting beside it was hers, written in red pen like she wanted to make sure I saw it. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. And I'm sorry. For everything. I stared at it until the words blurred together. And now I don't know what's worse. That Sarah lied to me. Or that Michael did too. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to the slow hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the floorboards above where Michael was sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that email. Not just the words, but the way it was clipped to the page, like Sarah wanted me to find it. At 4 a.m., I sat back at the table, staring at the notebook again. I flipped through the pages before and after the email, hoping there was more context. Some explanation. A correction. Maybe even a retraction. But no. Just more silence. Just that one, bleeding truth in red pen. I waited until morning. I made coffee. I fed the dog. I sat on the edge of our bed and watched Michael sleep, and I hated how peaceful he looked. Like he hadn't detonated a bomb in the middle of my life. Like my world wasn't upside down. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking in the morning light. Hey, he said, his voice groggy. You okay? Were you sleeping with her? I asked. His eyes went wide, not with surprise, but with recognition. That's what broke me. He didn't even ask who I meant. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face. I didn't think you'd find out. Jesus Christ. Not even a denial. Just that quiet, defeated admission, like he'd been holding his breath for months. When? I asked, and my voice cracked in the middle. Before we got engaged? He nodded once. Only once, he said. It was stupid. It didn't mean anything. She said she needed someone, and we were drunk, and... Stop, I said. He stopped. The room was so quiet, I could hear the refrigerator click off in the kitchen. A bird chirped outside the window like nothing had changed. You cheated on me, I said slowly, like I needed to hear it out loud to believe it. He looked down. It was a mistake. And then you told her to stay away. He froze. I tossed the notebook onto the bed. The page was still open, the email staring up at both of us. He didn't touch it. She wanted to tell you, he said. She said she couldn't stand walking beside you down the aisle like that. But I told her, he paused. I told her it would destroy you. He looked up at me then, and I hated that he looked like he was hurting. Like he was the one being betrayed. I didn't want to lose you. Then you shouldn't have fucked my best friend. The words hit him like a slap. He flinched. Good. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But the tears had dried up sometime in the night, and all that was left was this quiet, volcanic anger. I don't even know who I'm married to, I said. I'm still me, M. No, you're not. You're a man who looked me in the eyes and promised forever, knowing what you did. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. She's dying, I said, voice cold. And you made her carry this to her grave. He opened his mouth to say something, I don't even know what. But he didn't get the chance. Because just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Sarah's number. One sentence. There's more you don't know. Ask your sister. You think there's a bottom to betrayal. Some last run on the ladder where you can finally rest and say, this is it. It can't get worse than this. But no. Turns out the fall doesn't end when you hit the ground, it ends when you find out the ground was never solid to begin with. I hadn't spoken to my sister in over a year. Not because we fought, more like we drifted. She's older, married, 2 kids, a life that doesn't leave much room for late-night wine chats. But Sarah always kept up with her. That part never made sense to me. They were never close growing up, but somewhere along the way, they got tight. Tighter than I realized. So when I saw that text, "Ask your sister," I didn't hesitate. I called. "Emily," she answered on the first ring, voice thick with sleep and surprise. "Did you know?" I asked. No hello. No lead-in. Silence. Then, a sigh. Sarah told me not to say anything. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. I had to sit down. "So you did know?" "I didn't know all of it," she said. "Only pieces." I thought she was just having a breakdown, honestly. She told me about the night with Michael, said it was a mistake. Said she wanted to come clean but didn't want to ruin your wedding. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. She didn't just ruin my wedding. She stole from it. My sister's voice lowered. "Emily, there's something else." Of course there was. "She called me a week before the wedding," she continued. She was panicking. Said she needed 10 grand. Said she was out of time, that the trials were closing, and if she didn't pay, she'd miss her last shot. She didn't tell me what it was for at first. I thought it was gambling or something, I don't know. But then she sent me the paperwork. What paperwork? Medical. Clinical trials. A last-ditch immunotherapy program for stage 4 lymphoma. She'd been rejected twice because she couldn't cover the copays or travel costs. She thought if she could get in, maybe she'd make it another year. I stood up and paced the kitchen, my breath shallow. "She told me not to tell anyone," my sister continued. "She said if you knew, it would ruin everything, and she couldn't live with that. So I wired her some money. I figured she was desperate. I didn't know she was going to rob me?" I snapped. "Take it. Take it from the wedding." She didn't say that part. Just said she'd figure it out. I pressed my palm against my forehead. "You should have told me." I didn't know how. And when I realized what had happened, it was already done. And then, she disappeared. I tried calling her a dozen times after the wedding. She wouldn't pick up. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up again. "I know it doesn't make it right," my sister said quietly. "But Sarah didn't do it to hurt you. She was just trying not to die." I ended the call without saying goodbye. I didn't know what to feel anymore. I still don't. Rage. Betrayal. Pity. Grief. They all blur together now like wet paint, bleeding into each other until I can't tell one from the other. Later that night, I went back to the notebook. There was an envelope tucked between the pages. It wasn't sealed. Inside was a photo of me and Sarah, college graduation. We're both in caps and gowns, sunburnt and drunk on boxed wine, laughing so hard the picture's blurry. On the back, in her handwriting. "If I could go back, I'd never have touched him. I'd have told you everything. I'd have asked you to save me anyway." There was something else inside the envelope. A key. No note. Just a single, silver key. And now I need to know what it opens. I didn't sleep again. I just kept turning the key over in my hand. It was small, silver, unmarked. No label. No tag. Not even a scratch that could give away what it belonged to. But the moment I held it, I knew it wasn't for her apartment. I'd been to Sarah's place plenty of times. She had a keypad, not a lock. And besides, she'd moved months ago, I didn't even know where. So I called her mom. I hadn't spoken to her much since the wedding fallout. The woman who once called me her second daughter barely made eye contact when we bumped into each other at the hospital. But this time, she answered on the first ring. "Emily," she said, voice tight, like she'd been waiting. "I found a key in the notebook," I said. "Do you know what it's for?" Long pause. Then, quietly, "It's probably for the storage unit." My stomach dropped. "What storage unit?" "She got it 2 years ago. I only know because I co-signed. She said she needed a place to keep old things, college stuff, books, papers. I never thought much of it." "Where is it?" 30 minutes outside the city. "I'll text you the address." She hung up before I could say thank you. The place was one of those low-slung, dusty storage facilities lined with metal doors and bad lighting. The air smelled like mildew and cardboard. I stood outside Unit 308 for a long time, key in hand, heart pounding. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for. Closure? Clarity? A better version of the story? I unlocked the door. The light inside didn't work, so I flicked on my phone flashlight and stepped in. There wasn't much. A few stacked boxes. A narrow metal shelf. One suitcase. A couple of old journals. A shoebox labeled letters. It all smelled like time. I opened the suitcase first. Inside were old t-shirts, some photos, a faded stuffed bear I hadn't seen since college. I nearly smiled. Nearly. Then I opened the shoebox. That's when the shaking started. Inside were letters, dozens of them, addressed to me. All of them unopened. All of them unsent. Each envelope dated, starting from nearly a year ago. Some were tear-streaked. Others crumpled at the edges, like she'd carried them around and never found the nerve to send them. I opened one at random. April 18th. Today I saw you laughing in the park with Michael and I felt something I can't name. Not jealousy. Not hate. Just grief. For the version of me that used to belong in that picture. I don't anymore. Not after what I did. I know you'll never forgive me. But I want you to know, you were the best part of my life. Even if I ruined it. Another. June 2nd. I tried to sell the ring. The one from my ex-pawnshop guy said it wasn't worth much. Just like the marriage. Just like me, I guess. And then I found the one that made me sit down hard on the cold concrete floor. July 15th. There's something I haven't told you. About Michael. About the night it happened. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't one-sided. He came to me. He said things, about you. Things I didn't believe. But I let him in anyway. I wanted to feel wanted. And now I hate myself every day. I read that one twice. Then a third time. My hands were ice. This wasn't the version he gave me. He said she made a move on him. That it was a drunken moment. That it meant nothing. But in her letter, it wasn't just sex. It was a betrayal layered in resentment. Things said. Doubts planted. Michael didn't just cheat. He poisoned her. And she let him. I sat in that unit for an hour, maybe more, surrounded by boxes filled with the truth I'd never been given. When I finally stood, I spotted one last thing in the corner, a locked box. Small. Metal. Rusted at the hinges. I tried the same key. It fit. Inside was a flash drive. Just one file. Play me. I didn't even wait to get home. I drove to the nearest Starbucks, plugged my laptop into an outlet, and slipped the flash drive into the port with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. One folder. One file. Play_ME. MP4 inch. No date. No timestamp. Just that name, like a whisper daring me to press enter. I clicked it. The screen lit up with a shaky video. Sarah, sitting cross-legged on the floor of what looked like her bedroom, wearing a faded hoodie and no makeup. Her face was thinner. Paler. Her voice, when it came, was quiet but steady. Hey, Em. I froze. I don't know if you'll ever see this. If you're watching it, I guess I'm either dead or out of chances. I wasn't planning to record this, I was going to write it all out. But writing doesn't let you see someone's face. And I need you to see mine. She swallowed hard. I messed up. I know that. I could sit here and say it was the cancer or the fear or the debt, and all that's true. But it doesn't excuse what I did. A pause. Her eyes flicked off camera. Maybe she'd rehearsed this. Michael came to me the night of your bridal shower. You were passed out in the guest room. We'd all been drinking. He stayed back to help clean up. I thought it was innocent. I really did. Her voice cracked slightly. He started saying things, about how distant you'd been. How he felt unsure if you even wanted to marry him. He said you'd been cold lately, like you were only going through the motions. That he didn't feel wanted anymore. I felt sick. He kissed me first, she said. I told him to stop. And then I didn't. She looked straight at the camera. I don't know if I did it because I was lonely or because I still hated myself for the divorce. Maybe part of me wanted to matter to someone again. Or maybe I wanted to punish myself before the cancer did. She laughed, short and humorless. I thought if I took the money, I could fix it. Not the betrayal. Just the sickness. I thought maybe if I lived long enough, I could make it right somehow. I told myself it wasn't stealing, that I'd pay you back. But I never believed that. Not really. She wiped her eyes. I kept that email from him in the notebook because I needed you to know the truth. He told me to disappear. To shut up and stay out of the way. Not for your sake, for his. He didn't want to lose his perfect little life. Then she said the one thing that cracked me wide open. I never wanted to be the villain in your story, Em. But maybe someone had to be. She stared at the camera a moment longer. Then leaned forward and ended the video. The screen went black. I sat there in that coffee shop with tears rolling down my face, my fingers clenched into fists. People around me were sipping lattes, typing on laptops, laughing quietly. And my entire world had just detonated in a 5-minute video. I drove home in silence. Michael was sitting on the couch when I walked in. I didn't speak. I just handed him the flash drive. I know what's on it, he said quietly. I nodded. Good. Watch it anyway. He plugged it in without another word. I stood by the door while he listened to Sarah's last words, her quiet confessions, her cracked voice. I watched him flinch when she mentioned the bridal shower. Watched his face sink when she repeated his lies. And when the screen went black, he just sat there. Still. Silent. Say something, I said. He didn't. So I walked upstairs. Started packing a bag. I didn't know where I was going, just that I couldn't stay. I zipped the suitcase and turned around. He was standing in the doorway. I never stopped loving you, he said. And I almost laughed in his face. But I didn't. Because behind him, on the floor, was the notebook. Still open. To a page I hadn't seen before. In Sarah's handwriting. You'll never believe it now, but he loved you. I think he still does. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes the damage wins. I left the notebook on the floor. And walked out the door. I didn't go far. An old friend from college, Elise, had a guest room. She didn't ask questions. Just handed me a key, poured me a glass of wine, and said, "Take the bed. I'll be on the couch if you need to scream." I didn't scream. I didn't cry, either. Not that night. I just lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above me, wondering how I'd gotten here. 10 weeks ago, I was walking down an aisle with my best friend holding my train, smiling like we were 16 again. And now she was dead, and the man I married was a liar I couldn't even look in the eyes. Grief is weird like that. Sometimes it hits you like a car crash. Sometimes it just seeps in. A slow leak in the wall, unnoticed until the whole foundation is rotting. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I visited Sarah's grave. It was a plain headstone. No flowers. No visitors. Her mother told me they were planning something more appropriate later, but for now, this was where she rested. Just a patch of dirt and a cold rock with her name on it. Sarah Elena Mitchell. 1989 to 2025. Loved fiercely. Lived quietly. I stood there with my hands in my coat pockets, the wind biting through my sleeves. I didn't bring flowers. I didn't bring anything. I saw the video, I said aloud, my voice almost lost to the wind. I know everything now. Nothing answered me, of course. Just the rustling of leaves and the far-off hum of traffic. I should hate you, I said. But I don't. And I meant it. The anger had burned itself out. There was just ash now. That cold, weightless sorrow that settles in your chest and doesn't go away. You were right. Love wasn't enough. But God, you made me feel like I mattered. I sat on the grass, legs folded under me, and pulled the notebook from my bag. I read through the pages again. Not to punish myself, but to hold on to her. Her voice. Her strange humor. Her terrible drawings in the margins. One of me with devil horns labeled Bridezilla. One of Michael with stick arms and six-pack abs, which I still resent her for. Near the end, I found something I hadn't noticed before. An entry dated just a week before the wedding. If I don't make it through this, if my body gives up before I can make it right, I hope she knows. I hope she doesn't remember me as a thief. I hope she remembers the girl who drove 3 hours to pick her up after her first heartbreak, who taught her how to do eyeliner, who once held her hair while she puked in a Taco Bell parking lot and said, "At least aim for the beans next time." I laughed. I actually laughed. Then cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Because that's what I wanted to remember. Not the betrayal. Not the secrets. Not the wreckage. Just her. The friend who made me feel like I was never alone. I stayed at Elisa's for 4 more days. During that time, Michael texted twice. No calls. Just 2 messages. I know there's nothing I can say. But if you ever want to talk, I'll be here. I didn't reply. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Then, on the 5th morning, I threw up. Twice. I thought it was the wine, or the stress, or my body finally catching up with all the grief. But when I checked the calendar, counted back the weeks, I froze. I bought a test that afternoon. 3 minutes later, I stared at 2 pink lines. I sat on the bathroom floor for an hour, holding that little white stick like it was radioactive. Pregnant. The word felt foreign. Detached. Like it belonged to someone else. I wasn't ready to be a mother. I wasn't even sure I was still a wife. And the person I'd have run to first, the one who would have screamed and cried and bought tiny socks just to make me laugh, was in the ground. I told Elise that night. She didn't blink. "You're not alone," she said, simply. "You'll never be alone in this." I believed her. But I still didn't know what to do. I waited 2 more days before I told Michael. We met at a park, neutral ground, somewhere between distance and memory. I kept the test in my coat pocket the whole time, like I was carrying a live grenade. He looked thinner. Older, somehow. Grief does that. So does guilt. We sat on opposite ends of the bench, like strangers in a waiting room. "I'm pregnant," I said. No build-up. No small talk. Just the truth. His face went pale. Then he whispered, "Is it mine?" And that should have infuriated me, should have shattered the small bridge of civility we'd barely rebuilt. But it didn't. Because I understood the fear behind the question. He was afraid I'd already left him, not just physically, but emotionally. He thought maybe someone else had filled the space he'd abandoned. "It's yours," I said. "I haven't been with anyone else." He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "Are you keeping it?" he asked, carefully. I looked at him for a long time. "I don't know." He nodded. Looked down at his hands. "I'll support whatever you decide," he said. And I believed him. Not because he was trying to win me back, that part of us was gone. But because there was still something soft in him. Some thread of decency that hadn't snapped. Then I did something unexpected. I pulled the notebook from my bag and handed it to him. "You should read all of it." He took it without a word. "She wrote more than what was on the flash drive," I said. "Things about you. About me. About the baby, even. She never knew, but I think if she had, she would have told me to forgive you." He blinked. His voice caught. "Do you?" I didn't answer right away. I just watched the wind rustle the trees, a few brown leaves still clinging to life. "No," I said. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." But then I added something I hadn't planned. "But I don't hate you." That part surprised us both. We sat in silence after that. Not the awkward kind, just quiet. Tired. Human. He stood before I did. "I'd like to be involved," he said. "If you keep it." I nodded. Then I walked away. Not out of spite. Just because I needed space. I went back to Elisa's and curled up on the couch, one hand resting on my stomach. And for the first time since that damn wedding night, I felt something like hope. Not loud. Not bright. But small. Flickering. Alive. I have an appointment tomorrow. Not for anything drastic, just a confirmation. A scan. Blood work. I'm trying to take it one breath at a time. Before bed, I pulled out Sarah's notebook one more time. I flipped to the very last page. And there, in that same all-caps handwriting, was the last thing she ever wrote. If it's a girl, name her something brave. Something that reminds you of the fire, not the ashes. I wasn't sure I was going to share this. At first, this post was just therapy, the kind you can't afford and wouldn't know how to ask for anyway. I started it to scream into the void, to make sense of everything when nothing made sense. But I think you deserve to know how it ends. And more importantly, how it begins. Yesterday morning, after 17 hours of labor and one long, quiet C-section, I held my daughter in my arms for the first time. She was pink and squirming and pissed off at the world, and I'd never seen anything more perfect. Michael was in the room. He held my hand the whole time. We're not us anymore, not the way we used to be. But something's grown between us in the space that broke, something slow and honest. We're co-parents. We're kind to each other. Some days we even laugh. Maybe that's enough. After they cleaned her up, the nurse asked what name to write on the birth certificate. I didn't hesitate. Sarah, I said. Michael looked at me, surprised. He didn't say a word, just nodded once and smiled the smallest, saddest smile. It wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about honoring a friend who never said sorry. It was about remembering the girl I knew before all the lies. The one who held my secrets like glass. The one who made me laugh so hard I cried. The one who lost herself, and still tried to make it right in the end. I want my daughter to know that people are complicated. That love and betrayal can live in the same story. That pain doesn't have to erase memory, and memory doesn't have to erase pain. I want her to be brave. To tell the truth, even when it hurts. To walk away when love turns to rot. And to know that even broken things can grow into something new. Something stronger. Something fierce. Sarah Marie Walker. Born at 7:42 a.m. 6 pounds, 9 ounces. Eyes like mine. A temper like I've never seen. She screamed the whole ride home. And I smiled through every minute of it.